Every morning is a quiet second chance that life gently offers you. No one knows what will unfold the moment you open your eyes, but one thing is certain: how you begin your day determines how you will live the rest of it. In that fragile moment between dream and reality, you are not just waking up, you're standing at a crossroads. On one side lies delay, the worn-out habits that keep you reliving the same lifeless days. On the other side is conscious awareness, a small but powerful act of defiance that declares to the world, I am in charge, not my circumstances. And the most miraculous part, that decision happens before you even leave your bed. We often believe transformation begins with grand events or bursts of extraordinary inspiration. But it doesn't. Real life is shaped by seemingly trivial habits, like whether you rise with the alarm, whether you pause to breathe and write down one thing you're grateful for, or simply tidy your bed before stepping out the door. These aren't just actions. They are the ignition of discipline, the solid foundation upon which all meaningful growth is built. The morning is sacred ground, still untouched by the noise of the world. It is the window when your mind is most open, most programmable. If you don't intentionally plant seeds of clarity, gratitude, and purpose, society will quickly fill that space with confusion, distraction, and invisible pressure. You cannot expect a successful day if your morning begins in chaos, hurry, and a lack of direction. We don't lack time. What we often lack is the awareness that the morning holds the secret key to unlocking our better self. Once you realize this, you no longer wait for motivation to act. You act to create motivation. You stop waiting for the world to make room for you. You begin carving your own path. And then, those small things you do each morning, waking up on time, jotting down your goals, breathing in silence, moving your body, become more than just routines. They become a declaration to life. I am not drifting. I am designing myself. Every morning, before the world dares to call your name, before the weight of responsibility knocks at your door, before the digital noise begins to infiltrate your peace, there is a quiet battlefield. And make no mistake, you are already on it. This battlefield doesn't lie outside. It doesn't involve competition, comparison, or conflict with others. It is far more intimate. It lies within you, between who you were yesterday and who you are willing to become today. Between comfort and commitment. Between delay and discipline. Between the voice that tells you to stay in bed and the whisper urging you to rise. And this battlefield opens the very moment you wake. While the rest of the world is still wrapped in sleep, while millions hit snooze as a silent surrender to another unclaimed morning, a rare few rise. Not because it's easy, not because they felt ready, but because they've chosen to step into a life not dictated by feeling, but led by intention. The first 10 minutes after waking are not minutes. They are messages. They say something about who you are and what you believe your life is worth. They're the sacred window between inertia and motion, between surviving another day and declaring, this is my day, and I will not give it away. You see, this battle is not about time. It's about power. The power to choose your direction before the day drags you into distraction. The power to lead yourself when no one's watching. The power to take that first step, however small, and let it set the rhythm for every step that follows. Because here's the unspoken truth. Your first decision becomes the commander of all the decisions that come after it. If you begin your day in hesitation, you invite more hesitation. If you begin in clarity, you lead with clarity. And if you begin in action, no matter how modest, you awakened a strength that was sleeping just beneath the surface. This is the essence of winning the first battle. Not against others, but against your own indifference. Not against noise, but against numbness. Not against fatigue, but against forgetfulness. That dangerous amnesia that makes you forget who you are and why you're here. Greatness never begins at 9 a.m. It doesn't clock in when the office opens. It begins in the stillness of the early hours, when you rise not because the world requires it, but because your soul does. Benjamin Franklin once asked himself each morning, "What good shall I do this day?" He understood the truth. Morning is not a time. It's a temperature, a mental climate that influences the entire weather system of your day. Thomas Edison rose before dawn to sketch ideas while others were lost in dreams. Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations not because he was a philosopher first, but because he was a commander of his own mind. They didn't wait for the world to provide a reason to act. They became the reason. This is what you're invited into. Not just a new routine, but a new identity. The kind forged before the sun climbs the sky. The kind that doesn't need applause to act. The kind that wins battles the world never sees, and so wins lives the world can't ignore. You are not here to snooze your way through destiny. You are not here to drift through mornings like they don't matter. Because the truth is, they do. In fact, they matter more than most things you'll do for the rest of the day. Why? Because they are the first domino. Tip it in the right direction, and momentum takes care of the rest. Neglect it, and your day unravels before it even begins. The question is not, do you have time for the morning? The question is, do you have the courage to confront it? Because this battlefield, this sacred invisible arena, will always test you. Not with swords or noise, but with silence, with the aching temptation of staying under the covers, with the seductive idea that 5 more minutes won't hurt. But they do, not just because of time lost, but because of power given away. When you delay your rising, you delay your leadership. And when you delay your leadership, you enter the day already behind. Not on a to-do list, but in mindset, in energy, in clarity. But if you rise with resolve, even quietly, you become someone different. Someone who doesn't wait to feel motivated. Someone who doesn't need perfect circumstances to begin. Someone who understands that the war is often won not by might, but by rhythm. A rhythm built by choice, not chance. To win the morning is to win your identity. And to win your identity is to unlock your potential. One deliberate act at a time. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to claim that first minute, that first breath, that first thought, that first movement. Do it deliberately. Do it consistently. And do it knowing this is the training ground of the strong. Because here's another truth the world rarely speaks of. Most people don't lose because they lack potential. They lose because they never built the muscle of decision. And decision is a muscle. The more you exercise it, especially in the morning, the more natural it becomes to act in alignment with your highest self, not your weakest habit. Each morning gives you a choice. To be led by the agenda of others, or to define your own. To react to the pressures of life, or to respond from your purpose. To drift into the day, or to declare who you will be in it. You do not rise early for vanity. You rise early for sovereignty. Because in a world that's constantly pulling at your attention, your first act of the day is either a reclaiming or a surrender. And it begins with your alarm. Once you've conquered the first battlefield, the battle against delay, against the comfort of your bed and the fog of sleep, what comes next is not rest, but reprogramming. Not the mechanical kind, but the conscious action of someone rewriting the internal software that drives their identity. Because you're not defined by what you say you'll do, you're defined by what you consistently repeat. Habits are the invisible architects of visible destinies. No one becomes strong, wise, or grounded by accident. It all begins with small actions, repeated with great intention. And morning is the most powerful time to sow those actions. When the mind is still fresh, when the world hasn't yet imposed its tempo on you, and when your consciousness is still a blank canvas, untainted by fear, headlines, deadlines, or expectations. If the first chapter was your call to wake up and not miss yourself, this is your reminder that waking up isn't enough. You must live awake. And living awake means choosing, deliberately, what enters your mind first. Imagine your mind each morning as a garden. If you don't plant clarity, gratitude, and focus, weeds of worry, noise, and reactivity will take over. The mind, like soil, never stays empty. Either you tend it or it gets taken over. That's why morning habits aren't just routines. They are rituals. Rituals of ignition. Rituals of self-leadership. Rituals that say, I choose to live with intention. And in every small act, writing what you're grateful for, reading a powerful sentence, drinking that first glass of water with reverence, you are telling life, I don't react to the world. I shape it. Your habits don't reflect your old identity. They create your new one. You don't have to be disciplined to start a habit. But once you build the right habits, you become disciplined. Repetition transforms behavior into identity. And identity drives decisions, without friction, without hesitation. Think about the times you scrolled social media the moment you woke up. Even for a few minutes, you allowed someone else to shape your mood before you even remembered who you were. It could be a highlight reel, a complaint, or a distraction. And by letting that in first, you silently gave away control. Now, contrast that with starting your day in silence, with breath, with a question like, what matters most today? Or with one simple sentence of gratitude. You're not just pausing, you're programming. When you enter the world after that, you're not swept away by noise. You lead with clarity. Morning habits are the silent test of leadership. You might not be the CEO of a company, but you're the CEO of your life. And every great leader begins their day with a meeting. Not with the world, but with themselves. It happens in silence, on the page, or in the breath. It doesn't need applause. It only needs presence. A human being deciding what matters, what doesn't, and where their energy will go. People often ask, how do I stay motivated every day? The answer isn't in hype or hashtags. It's in your morning habits, the space where you plant the seeds of focus, purpose, and direction. You cannot have a powerful day if you start it passively. And you cannot live a purposeful life if every morning you forget that you have a say. What you do each morning is your quiet declaration to yourself. When you follow through on something as simple as waking on time, drinking water, making your bed, you build self-respect. You tell yourself, I keep my word. Small habits, done right, create massive momentum. You don't need to go to the gym for an hour. Just stretch for 5 minutes. But do it daily. You don't need to write 10 pages. Just write one clear sentence. You don't need to meditate for half an hour. Just breathe intentionally for 3 minutes. It's not about the length, it's about presence. And strangely enough, the more present you are in small acts, the more powerful their impact becomes. A sip of water becomes a symbol of life. A written line becomes a silent vow. A few uplifting notes of music become emotional architecture. A morning with intention, even 20 minutes, can lift you out of years of unconscious patterns you thought you were stuck in. Morning isn't just when you wake up. Morning is where you are reborn, consciously. If you've ever felt disconnected from yourself, trace it back to your mornings. If you've felt stuck, tired, or uncertain, don't search outside for answers. Look at what you do right after you open your eyes, because the person you're becoming is hiding in the habits you repeat at sunrise. And here's the beauty. You can begin again, any day. All it takes is remembering that morning isn't a continuation of yesterday. It's a clean start. And in that clean start, you don't need to become a whole new person overnight. You just need to do the right thing once more, because habit is the bridge, and the right habit, built with intention, will take you from who you've been to who you were born to be. Once you've learned to rise early and sow the right habits to reprogram your mind, there is something invisible yet essential you must learn to embrace: silence. Not the kind that stems from fatigue or emptiness, but the intentional stillness, a sacred space from which inner strength is born. In a world drowned in noise, sensational news, constant notifications, endless demands from work and others, choosing silence becomes an act of rebellion. But it's a noble rebellion. When you choose silence in the morning, you're declaring, "I guide my life, not the world around me." We often mistakenly believe that strength must be loud, busy, and highly visible. But the truth is this: true strength flows from deep stillness. Strength doesn't need to be seen to be real. It is the quiet force, the calm gaze, the slow, steady breath, the unwavering heart amidst the storm. And it is in the morning, before the world has a chance to sweep you away, that you have a rare opportunity to step into that state. Silence is not absence. It is profound presence. When you sit in silence, doing nothing, saying nothing, you're not retreating from life. You're accessing life on a deeper level. In that stillness, you begin to hear yourself again. Not the echo of social media, not the whisper of insecurity, but the real voice within you. The one you've forgotten beneath the noise of daily living. And here's the miracle. It is in silence that you remember the most important truth: who you really are. Not your titles, not your roles, not the performances you put on for others, but your true self, the place where your purpose still burns, where your dreams quietly live, and where your deepest questions lie unanswered. From that silence, you retrieve your inner compass. You stop being pulled by the rhythms of others, and you begin to set your own. Silence creates boundaries, and boundaries create power. Imagine your mind as a fortress. If you let everything in the moment you wake, the headlines, the emails, the notifications, you're throwing the gates wide open to anything and everything. No fortress can maintain integrity when invaded every day. But when you begin your day with silence, you rebuild the walls. You tell the world, "You will have part of me, but not yet." You protect the first hour of your day as sacred territory, where only you and your truth reside. It's inside this boundary that you reclaim mental sovereignty. And from that sovereignty, you gain the strength to own the rest of your day. Silence doesn't drain you. It restores you. Have you ever noticed that some mornings you wake up tired not because you didn't sleep enough, but because your mind is overloaded? Not because you did too much, but because you absorbed too much? What you're lacking isn't caffeine. What you're truly missing is empty space to breathe, to reset, to return to yourself. Silence doesn't just calm your nerves, it recharges your energy. When you sit in stillness, even for just 5 to 10 minutes without screens, sound, or stimulation, you're replenishing the core battery of your being, conscious awareness. And a person rooted in awareness is a person that cannot be shaken easily, a person who can walk into the chaos without becoming part of it. To choose silence is to choose mastery over reactivity. Most people live in a loop of reaction, jolting out of bed, scrolling their phone, absorbing stress, running on autopilot. Then they wonder why their days feel out of control. Morning silence shifts you from reaction to response, meaning you no longer act because you're being pulled. You act because you've chosen your direction. When you start your day with a moment of silence, not thinking, not planning, just being, you begin to respond to life with grounded intention. From that place, everything that follows, drinking water, writing down a goal, stretching your body, becomes deeper. No longer just to-do items, but deliberate expressions of awareness. Silence is not weakness. Silence is wisdom. The world teaches us to speak more, move faster, and stay constantly busy. But the great ones don't rush. They're not moved by noise. They choose when to speak. They know when to be silent. That's why morning silence isn't withdrawal. It's preparation. The space where you ready your soul before entering the emotional battlefield of the world, like the archer drawing back his bow, like the warrior sharpening her blade, like the leader standing over the map before commanding the troops. Silence is mental strategy time, and it is sacred. Make silence a sacred morning ritual. You don't need to meditate like a monk. Just 5 minutes each morning with no input is enough. No phone, no news, no conversation, just you and your breath. Let that silence be the place where you hear what you've been avoiding, the tension you've buried, the longing you haven't named, the pulse of your own existence. From there, you don't just begin your day. You begin again, with depth, clarity, and unshakable self-trust. In the end, silence isn't emptiness. Silence is origin. It's where you return when the world is too loud. It's where you go when you want to live authentically. It's where every great thought, every powerful act, every calm presence begins. Because only when you are quiet enough can you hear what truly matters. And once you've heard that voice, you no longer need the world to tell you who you are. You know, and you walk forward, not shouting, not proving, just being clearly, deeply, and peacefully. After you've entered your morning in silence, when you've listened to what the world often drowns out, the voice within, something organic emerges, a quiet, almost instinctual urge to take the next step, to write. Writing is not merely documentation. Writing is a ritual. Writing is the act in which the formless becomes form. It is the bridge between intention and action. The moment where you don't just think or feel. You declare, design, and define. Writing is not an act of remembering. It's an act of commanding. From silence comes language, and what is written becomes your living declaration. After you've sat with yourself, and heard the quiet truths rise, your next responsibility is simple yet profound. Write them down. Because if you don't, your insights will evaporate like morning mist. Your feelings will flow away like an uncontained stream, and you'll fall back into the blur of a reactive day, forgetting what you once knew just a moment ago. But a single written sentence, a goal, a thought, a gratitude becomes the foundation of your day, not from rigid logic, but from clarity of being. To write is to trap clarity before it disappears, to anchor thought in matter, to say, this mattered enough to hold still. Writing is the tool of the builder, not the follower. People who live by default don't write. They wait, they react, they drift. But people who live by design write to lead. They write to direct their focus, to ground their energy, and to plant their intentions. You don't need to be a writer to write. You just need to be someone who refuses to be a passenger in your own mind. Writing is not performance. It is internal leadership. It is the quiet declaration that your thoughts deserve form. A single sentence can shape a day. A few days of writing can shape a life. You don't need pages. You don't need elegance. You need truth. One line. Today I will act with intention. One thought. I am grateful for my clarity. One question. What matters most today? These short lines become lighthouses in the emotional fog. They keep you aligned. They return you to what is essential. When you write, you remember. When you write, you choose. When you write, you set direction. The blank page is not a void. It's a frontier of possibility. Each morning, when you sit with a blank page, you're not filling space. You're stepping into sacred territory. The page is not empty. It's open. It's waiting for what matters most to be named. And what you write, you plant. You design your day not by accident, but by deliberate authorship. To write is to rise not into reaction, but into authorship. You are not waiting for life to define you. You are defining it, one sentence at a time. Writing is your quiet covenant with yourself. Each word you write is a promise, not to impress others, but to stay true to who you are becoming. When you write your goals, you give them weight. When you write what you're grateful for, you change your lens. When you write your intentions, you hold yourself accountable. No one has to read it. No one even needs to know. The page is your mirror. The page is your witness. The page is your ally. The greatest minds wrote, not because they had time, but because they had vision. Marcus Aurelius didn't write for others. He wrote to stay steady in the chaos. Benjamin Franklin began his mornings by asking, "What good shall I do this day?" Steve Jobs wrote about his mortality as a way of sharpening his focus. These were not acts of indulgence. They were acts of alignment. You don't need a perfect system. You don't need a fancy journal. You just need 5 minutes and a pen, and the honesty to say, here I am. This is what matters. Write to focus. Write to process. Write to release. When you write your tasks, you reduce mental clutter. When you write your fears, they lose power over you. When you write your vision, it becomes tangible. The page holds your confusion without judgment. It receives your emotion without resistance. It gives you space to breathe, to feel, to think. Writing isn't weakness. It's how you liberate your mind from mental noise. Writing trains the soul to stay present. We live with too many open tabs. Always switching, never fully here. But when you write, you slow down. You land. You are here, fully with your thoughts, your breath, your truth. The page doesn't allow for multitasking. It demands presence. And in that presence, something powerful happens. Your soul, once scattered, regathers. You become whole again, not divided by distraction, but unified by clarity. You don't write because you're a writer. You write because you're alive. You don't need perfect words. You don't need proper grammar. You just need to show up, messy, real, uncertain, sincere. Write poorly. Write simply. Write anyway. A chaotic page is better than a cluttered head. A single sentence, written with intention, is stronger than hours of unspoken chaos. You write not for social media. You write for the rescue of your awareness. Every written word is a step toward inner mastery. Writing is strength training for the mind. It builds resilience. It sharpens awareness. It deepens your relationship with your truest self. You don't become who you are through chance. You become through deliberate reflection. And writing is the mirror. Each word you write is a brick. Each line a layer. You are not just journaling. You are constructing your clarity. Writing is how you stop being a guest in your own life. When you don't write, life writes itself for you. Other people's goals, ideas, and noise flood your consciousness. But when you write, you choose the script. Writing is agency. It is the reclamation of your time, your energy, your mind. After you've rediscovered your inner voice through silence and anchored it with intentional writing, there is one decisive element you can no longer ignore: your environment. It's no coincidence that after inner awakening, we must look outward. Writing is an inward act. But to write consistently, to stay mindful, to live in alignment with what you've written, you need a supportive space, an environment that sustains rather than disrupts. Your environment is not just where you live. It is a continuous stream of signals to your brain. The background music that influences the entire mental soundtrack of your day. You are the result of the signals you absorb most consistently every morning. Before you form a single conscious thought, your surroundings have already whispered a question. What kind of day will this be? You may not have written your goals yet, but if you wake in a cluttered, dim, noisy, or stifling space, your mind naturally syncs with that rhythm: chaotic, heavy, unclear. Environment doesn't speak in words because it programs you through feeling. You cannot expect mental clarity if the first thing you see is a messy desk. You cannot expect willpower if you're irritated while hunting for your journal, your pen, or a quiet corner. Every micro-disruption is a message. The world is working against you, but every act of preparation is a gentle reminder. You are supported. Designing your environment is designing the habits you want to repeat. You don't need superhuman willpower to wake up early if your phone is already across the room and soft morning light is filtering in. You don't need extra motivation to write if your notebook is already open and your pen is waiting. All powerful habits are not built by force. They are built through simplified decisions. An ideal environment is not about luxury. It is about making the habits you want to maintain effortless, frictionless, and accessible. A space that, when you enter it, seems to say, "Be the person you wrote about this morning." Never underestimate the power of small details. A tidy desk, a glass of water placed intentionally, a scented candle evoking calm, a soft instrumental playlist in the background, morning light streaming through a clean window. These are not decorations. They are signals to your nervous system. You create beauty around you, not to impress the world, but to tell yourself, I deserve to live in a space that honors intention. No one can stay mindful in a space full of mental clutter. Even the strongest person will lose clarity in an environment that constantly demands resistance. But even the most fragile person can become resilient when placed in a nurturing space. Because human growth doesn't come from pressure, it comes from support. Your environment doesn't just influence behavior, it shapes identity. Repeated actions become habits. Repeated habits become identity. But what makes actions repeatable is environment. If you live in a space where every day you see yourself journaling, reading, stretching, breathing, then over time, you're no longer just doing those things. You are becoming someone who lives on purpose. Eventually, you no longer need to push yourself. The environment gently pulls you back into alignment with who you're becoming. You don't need to control the world, just your corner of it. None of us can control the entire world, but all of us can begin with our own corner. Your desk, your reading chair, your room, your writing nook. That corner is a physical reflection of your internal space. When you care for it with presence and precision, you're sending a powerful message. I am reclaiming the space I live in, and therefore the person I'm becoming. Try tidying it up. Not because you're a neat freak, but because you're someone who lives with clarity. Try preparing the night before. Your pen, your notebook, a water bottle, a calming playlist, like a quiet promise to your future self. Tomorrow, I begin strong. Strength doesn't come from willpower. It comes from systems. Willpower is a limited resource. But your systems, including your environment, can be automated sources of strength. If you're battling against your surroundings every day, you will burn out. But if you create an environment where the right behavior becomes easy, you no longer need to battle at all. You simply flow toward what you've already set in motion. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Because strength is not about fighting everything. It's about not needing to fight. The room you occupy reflects the state of your mind. Walk into a space where everything is in its place. Clean, light-filled, calm. And you'll feel a silent clarity that needs no explanation. And when someone walks into a room you've curated with presence, they'll think, this person knows who they are. It's not in the furniture, it's in the intention, just like the mind. When you've ordered your thoughts internally, your external world starts to reflect that alignment. A clear mind gravitates toward clear spaces, and clear spaces cultivate even clearer minds. Your environment silently asks you, do you believe you're worth it? Every time you enter your space, ask yourself, does this place remind me of what matters? Does it inspire me to live more fully? Does it support the version of me I wrote about this morning? If the answer is no, it's not because you're failing. It's because your environment isn't honoring your purpose, and you have the power to redesign it. Once your environment has been properly set, you begin to feel the flow of ease. Right actions no longer feel like inner battles. They become natural responses. But this is also where a paradox arises. The easier things feel, the more likely you are to fall into complacency. The more you feel aligned, the easier it is to pause and believe you've done enough. And that is the precise moment when you need the quiet but mighty force of perseverance. Perseverance isn't glamorous. It doesn't draw applause. It doesn't give you the thrill of an instant breakthrough. But it is the single trait that separates those who live temporarily from those who truly transform. Perseverance is not repetition, it is deepening. Each day you write, you're not merely repeating an act, you're digging deeper into yourself. It's the same page, but today you write with more maturity than yesterday. It's the same glass of morning water, but you drink with more gratitude. It's the same familiar corner, but you sit with the spirit of someone who has walked another stretch of the path. Perseverance is not about keeping up, it's about developing depth. And depth becomes the foundation for true change. No one sees you while you persevere, but that's where you build yourself. The world doesn't clap for your 30 consecutive early mornings. No one records your 10-minute morning stillness. There are no stage lights when you resist temptation to stay true to your values. But in that darkness, you are becoming someone new. You don't need anyone to witness it. Because the one who most needs to believe in you is you. Perseverance creates new identity. People don't change because they read something inspiring. They change because a new behavior becomes part of who they are. And no action becomes part of you unless it is repeated with intention. When you write consistently, you're not just a person who journals. You become a person of clarity. When you reflect consistently, you're not just someone who can sit in silence. You become a person of depth. When you act consistently, you don't just know what to do. You become someone who lives with direction. Perseverance is not about never feeling tired. It's about knowing why you don't stop. There will be days when progress is invisible. There will be mornings when boredom sets in. There will be moments when you wonder, do these small things really matter? And the answer is, not immediately, but absolutely, yes. Because every time you overcome the urge to quit, you reinforce your identity. Every time you do the right thing, even when unseen, you write another line in your life story. You don't need everything to change in 7 days. You just need to not give up for 70 days. Perseverance won't make you perfect. It will make you unshakable. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs steady ones. Those who remain mindful in chaos, who stay committed amidst distraction, who hold faith when doubt is loud. And what creates those people isn't talent or inspiration. It is perseverance. Perseverance gives you a kind of strength that no storm can steal. Inner strength. You don't have to be better than yesterday. You just need not to quit today. We pressure ourselves to always improve, but truthfully, some days you just need to stand still and not go backward. Just write, just sit in stillness. Just return to your quiet corner, even if only for 10 minutes. You've already won, not because you're flawless, but because you didn't betray what you believe in. Perseverance is how you send the universe a signal. I am serious. Life doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to commitment. You don't need to scream your intentions. You just need to repeat small acts often enough, and life will listen. Keep writing. Sit down. Breathe. Act. Adjust. No showmanship. No complaint. No audience. Just you. And what you believe in. What you commit to. And that's powerful enough to change your entire life. In conclusion, perseverance is the seed, the root, the trunk, the branch, the flower, the fruit. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs steady ones, those who remain mindful in chaos, who stay committed amidst distraction, who hold faith when doubt is loud. And what creates those people isn't talent or inspiration. It is perseverance. Perseverance gives you a kind of strength that no storm can steal. Inner strength. You don't have to be better than yesterday. You just need not to quit today. We pressure ourselves to always improve. But truthfully, some days you just need to stand still and not go backward. Just write. Just sit in stillness. Just return to your quiet corner, even if only for 10 minutes. You've already won, not because you're flawless, but because you didn't betray what you believe in. Perseverance is how you send the universe a signal. I am serious. Life doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to commitment. You don't need to scream your intentions. You just need to repeat small acts often enough, and life will listen. Keep writing. Sit down. Breathe. Act. Adjust. No showmanship. No complaint. No audience. Just you. And what you believe in. What you commit to. And that's powerful enough to change your entire life. In conclusion, perseverance is the seed, the root, the trunk, the branch, the flower, the fruit. No sustainable transformation comes from sudden breakthroughs. All of it arises from a series of small acts repeated for a large reason. You don't need more motivation. You need to move. You don't need to prove. You just need to persist. And if you can hold on to what's right long enough, what's right will hold on to you. In the moments of doubt, fatigue, and uncertainty. Because in a world full of flux, the one who perseveres becomes unstoppable. After everything you've built, from designing your environment, forming habits, to maintaining perseverance, there remains a crucial element that ensures your journey doesn't break apart: believing in yourself. This belief isn't blind optimism, nor empty cheerleading. It is the deep foundation upon which all sustainable growth is constructed. Belief is what you need most when you feel it least. It leads you when logic doubts, when emotions are exhausted, and when results are unclear. It is the flame you guard within, smouldering, enduring, unglamorous, but never extinguished. You don't need others to believe in you. You need to believe in yourself. Society has conditioned us to constantly seek external validation, likes, praise, approving glances. But the journey of self-development does not begin outward. It begins with an inner decision. I believe I have value. I believe I can change. I believe the small things I'm doing today, though unseen, are building something meaningful. You may not be perfect, but if you believe you are growing, then you are on the right path. Belief is not an emotion. It's a choice repeated daily. There will be mornings when nothing feels clear. Everything is vague. You doubt yourself. You're unsure if you're on the right path. But you still write. You still sit down. You still do what you committed to do. That is belief. Not a fleeting feeling, but an intentional act. A choice that says, I don't need to see everything clearly to keep going. Belief doesn't require light. It is the light. Believing in yourself doesn't mean thinking you're great. It means knowing you're brave enough to learn. You don't need to believe that you're always right. You only need to believe that you're always willing to learn, to adjust, and to continue. Growth does not come from pride. It comes from humility, but powerful humility. Humility to admit wrongs. Strength to not give up. You don't need 100% certainty to move forward. Just enough belief to not turn back. Belief doesn't deny reality. It redefines how you view it. Reality may say, you haven't gotten far. Belief responds, I'm moving. Reality may present numbers, rejections, comparisons. Belief says, I don't need to compare. I need to be consistent. Reality may make you feel small, isolated. But belief whispers, I'm building something no one can see yet, but I know it's real. Belief doesn't have to be loud. It just needs to not be silent when you're close to giving up. You may not be the most confident person, but you can be the person who doesn't quit. And that is the highest form of belief. Belief is not always a roaring fire. Sometimes it's just embers, just warm enough to keep you holding on. And in those moments, when you're most tired, most alone, belief becomes your quietest but most vital companion. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to prove to yourself, I will not abandon me. The world may misunderstand you. It may not see the value you're creating. But you don't need to prove anything as long as you don't betray yourself. The actions you repeat every day, no matter how small, are living proof that you choose to continue. And that, over time, is stronger than any grand declaration. Belief is the final piece that prevents perseverance from becoming extremism and habits from becoming mechanical. When you persevere without belief, you risk becoming a lifeless machine, doing without understanding, sustaining without feeling. But when you link habits with belief, every small action holds existential meaning. It's no longer, I have to do this. It becomes, I'm planting a seed. It's no longer, I must complete this. It becomes, I'm shaping an identity. Belief transforms the journey from effective to meaningful. In conclusion, believing in yourself is where all strength begins. Every skill takes time. Every result takes effort. But before skill and result, you need one thing. Belief that you are worthy of the journey. You don't need to have all the answers to begin. You just need to believe you can find them. And if each day you keep that flame alive, even the smallest one, you will go further than those who wait for brilliant light to start. Because in the end, the one who reaches the destination isn't the strongest. It's the one who holds on to belief when everything else begins to shake. If belief is the fire that burns within, then consistency is the rhythm of the hands that keep feeding that fire, quietly, steadily, and without applause. It is the unseen drumbeat beneath greatness, the whisper behind bold declarations, the step-by-step path walked not for others to witness, but for the soul to stay true. You've already lit the flame of belief. Now you must honor it every day with consistency. Consistency is not the act of being perfect. It's the act of showing up. Not once, not occasionally, but repeatedly. It's what bridges the space between desire and reality, between dreams and evidence. It is how you speak to the world without words. I mean this. I live this. Those who change their lives and the lives of others aren't always the loudest, the most talented, or the most charismatic. More often, they are the ones who return again and again to the practice. They don't wait for the right feeling. They train themselves to show up regardless of the feeling, because they understand something few truly grasp. Consistency is what turns invisible effort into visible legacy. While others wait for inspiration, the consistent create it. While others wait for clarity, the consistent find it through movement. While others need motivation, the consistent become their own source. They do not ask the morning how they feel. They tell the morning who they are. Consistency is how you honor your belief. It's the loyalty you show to the promises you whispered to yourself when no one else heard. It's how you turn belief into behavior, and behavior into identity. You begin to say with your actions, louder than any affirmation, "This is who I am now." There will be days you don't want to show up. There will be days when resistance screams louder than purpose. Those are the days that define you, not because they feel epic, but because they are the chisel shaping who you become. Every time you return to the page, the breath, the step forward, you are returning to yourself. Consistency does not demand grand action. It demands real action, honest action. Small, sincere acts done not for performance, but for alignment. Because you've realized that greatness isn't built in bursts. It is layered, slowly, in the quiet repetitions no one sees. Consistency is your daily decision to embody your belief, not as a slogan, but as a standard. You no longer ask if today will be perfect. You ask, will I honor who I said I want to become? And with each yes, no matter how simple, you place another stone on the path to an unshakable life. Those who are consistent don't always feel strong, but they've built a strength deeper than emotion, a strength rooted in commitment. And when everything else falters, that is the strength that remains. So keep returning, keep repeating, keep becoming. Consistency is not a trait you're born with. It's a choice you train into your soul. It is the art of small devotion multiplied by time. And in the end, it is how the extraordinary emerge, not all at once, but one steady act at a time. Consistency gives us rhythm. Belief gives us direction. But if there's one force that truly reveals who we are, one teacher that strips away illusion and brings us face to face with our core, it is pain. And most of us misunderstand it. Pain is not your enemy. It is not punishment. It is not the universe working against you. Pain is a signal. Pain is raw data. Pain is your body, your heart, your mind all screaming the same truth. There's something here that matters. We have been taught to avoid pain, to escape it, to numb it, to hide it. But what if pain isn't something to run from? What if it is a portal? What if, instead of closing down in the face of pain, we opened ourselves up and walked through it with awareness, with courage, and with trust that we will not come out smaller, but stronger? You cannot choose whether pain visits you, but you can choose what role it plays in your life. It can be your prison, or it can be your power. The pain you avoid becomes the chain you carry. Every time we ignore pain, suppress it, or pretend it doesn't matter, we don't escape it. We store it, we bury it, and it becomes weight. A hidden heaviness that drags us slowly over time. Pain unprocessed becomes patterns. It becomes short tempers, broken relationships, unfulfilled potential. But pain faced, pain felt, acknowledged, and honored becomes strength. It transforms into wisdom, into empathy, into clarity. It becomes fuel. The fire you walk through does not burn you down. It forges you. There is no growth without resistance. Ask anyone who builds strength, physical, emotional, spiritual, and they will tell you, there is no evolution without tension. Your muscles grow by tearing and rebuilding. Your character grows the same way. Comfort doesn't produce power. Challenge does. And pain, when met with intention, becomes the resistance that strengthens your foundation. So when discomfort arrives, don't retreat. Don't interpret it as failure. See it as confirmation. You are on the edge of your old limits. And the edge is where growth lives. Let your pain become your teacher. Pain is a mirror. It shows you what matters to you. It shows you where you're not aligned. It shows you where you've abandoned yourself. But it can also show you what you're capable of enduring and who you're capable of becoming. Sit with your pain. Write to it. Walk with it. Ask it what it wants to reveal. You will find that pain, like a loyal teacher, always points you back to your truth. Not your image, not your titles, but your truth. The world's most powerful people are not the ones who've avoided pain. They are the ones who've transformed it. Look closely at those who move you, the artists, the leaders, the healers, the wise ones. None of them are strangers to pain. What makes them radiant is not their immunity, but their alchemy. They took the ashes of disappointment and built vision. They turned heartbreak into compassion. They transformed failure into foundation. You can too. Pain doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're being reshaped. We are so quick to judge ourselves when we hurt. We think it means we're weak, lost, falling behind. But pain is not the sign that you're failing. It's the sign that life is moving you through a transformation. When you hold space for your pain, when you don't rush to fix it or hide it, you gain access to a kind of self-respect that cannot be faked. A quiet power that says, I've been through the fire and I still choose to love. I still choose to create. I still choose to rise. When you give your pain a purpose, it can no longer control you. Pain with no direction becomes chaos. But pain given a purpose becomes sacred. It becomes part of your offering to the world. Let your pain remind you of your resilience. Let it keep you humble. Let it teach you to listen. Let it drive you to serve. You cannot undo what hurt you, but you can choose to let that hurt turn you toward healing. Not just for yourself, but for others too. Let your scars be your signature. You do not need to hide your wounds to be worthy. You do not need to heal in silence to earn belonging. Your scars are not shameful. They are proof. You are a survivor, a builder, a soul who stayed when it was easier to run. Do not polish your story for acceptance. Let it breathe in its rawness. That is how others find courage. In your truth, not as in your perfection. You are not fragile. You are being formed. Pain is not the opposite of strength. It is the birthplace of it. You are not behind because you hurt. You are not weak because you cry. You are alive, and life is shaping you, not to destroy, but to reveal. You are not the pain. You are the person walking through it. You are the architect of your meaning, the translator of your story. And when you choose to turn pain into purpose, hardship into heart, suffering into service, you do not just rise. You rise different. You rise ready. So the next time pain knocks at your door, do not shut it out. Greet it. Sit with it. Ask it what it came to teach you. Then walk forward with eyes wide open and a heart still burning. Because you now know, pain is not the chain that binds you. It is the fuel that carries you forward. You've walked through the fire. You've sat with pain. You've watched belief evolve into identity and consistency shape your life. Now, as you emerge from the forge, you arrive at a realization more liberating than any external success. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that defines your life. We cannot always control what life delivers. Circumstances shift. People change. Unexpected losses occur. But the question that remains, and the question that ultimately determines the arc of our lives, is this: what will you do with what you've been given? This is not about pretending that hardship doesn't hurt, or that disappointment doesn't sting. This is about choice in the face of reality. Pain was the door, but response is the path. Your power is not in changing every outcome. It's in choosing your inner stance, your next step, your persistent posture of courage. Everything you've endured has prepared you for this truth. Response is a superpower. The world may shake, emotions may roar, but you get to decide, will I react from fear, or will I respond from purpose? Every powerful person you admire, every resilient soul you encounter, learned this: They may not control the weather, but they choose the sail. To respond with wisdom means to pause instead of panic, to breathe before breaking, to ask not why me, but what now? And in that question, your story shifts. Because when you respond with awareness, you turn a setback into a setup. You turn delay into preparation. You turn rejection into redirection. And with each intentional response, you reclaim your authorship. You stop being a character in someone else's script and become the narrator of your own. The world will offer you plenty of reasons to react. It will trigger your wounds. It will test your patience. It will poke your doubts. But each time you respond instead of react, you grow the space between stimulus and story. And in that space, you grow yourself. This is emotional maturity, choosing what story to write regardless of what page life hands you. It's no longer about what they said or what didn't happen. It's about what you choose to create next. Sometimes the most powerful response is stillness. Other times it's bold action. But always it comes from consciousness. You're no longer being pulled by the noise. You're anchored in your knowing. You've built the resilience. You've forged the strength. And now you choose. Let this be your freedom. You don't need perfect circumstances to live powerfully. You need presence. You need clarity. You need to trust that your inner world has become stronger than the chaos of the outer world. Your power is not in waiting for things to align. It's in aligning yourself first. Aligning with your values. Aligning with your vision. Aligning with your peace. When the storm hits, and it will, you don't need to escape. You need to remember, you are the storm's equal. And when people ask you, how did you do it? How did you stay grounded? You won't say you avoided adversity. You'll say, I responded with grace. I responded with grit. I responded like someone who remembered who they are. Because that's what this journey was always about. Not perfect days, not a painless path, but about becoming someone who knows, without question, that their response shapes their reality. So respond, not with fear, not with frenzy, but with fire and stillness, with conviction and calm, with love and leadership. Your circumstances may not always be your choice, but your response, that is your art, that is your integrity, that is your power. You are not what happened to you. You are what you chose to become next. And that choice, made daily, is how you build a life no force can shake. A life authored, not inherited. Directed, not defaulted. Defined, not dictated. That's how you walk forward now, not hoping life will be easier, but knowing you are stronger. And not just stronger, but more awake, more deliberate, more powerful. Because your greatest power has never been circumstance. It has always been your response. If your response is your power, then your legacy is how that power leaves a trace. Not in the big speeches, not in grand achievements, but in the quiet, unseen, ordinary decisions you make when no one is watching. Legacy is not about what you accumulate. It's about what you activate in yourself and in others. It is not what you own. It is what you awaken. It is not what you leave behind. It is what you live by. We often think of legacy as something distant, something we will one day build. But legacy is not a future moment. It is a current practice. It is etched not in stone monuments, but in how you show up today, how you respond to the people around you, how you hold your word, how you carry your truth. The world may celebrate your peaks, but your legacy is carved in the valleys. It is written not when things go right, but when you choose what is right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. What you build with integrity becomes unshakable. What you repeat with love becomes unforgettable. And what you choose in silence echoes louder than what you proclaim in public. The people who impact us most are not always the loudest, wealthiest, or most followed. They are the ones who make us feel seen, heard, and strengthened by their presence. Legacy, in the end, is not applause. It is influence that lives on. So ask yourself, what kind of energy do I leave behind in every room I exit? What memory do I plant in people's hearts after a single interaction? What do I teach others, not through words, but through my example? You don't need to change the world to leave a legacy. You just need to touch one life deeply, consistently, truthfully. And often, that life is your own, because the way you treat yourself becomes a permission slip for how others are allowed to treat you. The respect you give yourself becomes a blueprint for others to follow. Legacy begins with how you lead your own life. It begins with the standard you uphold when no one is measuring you. It begins with your rituals, your mindset, your presence. If you wait to be recognized to lead, you've missed the point. Leadership that lasts is self-led. Legacy that matters is self-authored. The invisible moments when you choose discipline over ease, compassion over anger, truth over comfort. Those moments are bricks in the foundation of a life that will stand long after you're gone. Live now as if your future self is watching. Lead now as if generations will quote your example. Act now as if your choices echo beyond your time. Because they do. One morning of commitment leads to a week of progress. 1 week of alignment creates a month of momentum. 1 year of consistency becomes a decade of depth. And a decade of devotion. That becomes a legacy. So stop searching for signs that you matter. Start building proof that you do. Every action aligned with your values is a legacy in motion. Every act of courage, no matter how quiet, is a torch passed forward. You are not too young, too unknown, or too unfinished to begin this work. You are already writing your legacy with every breath. With every moment, you choose love over indifference, integrity over performance, growth over pride. Legacy is not left. It is lived. It's not a title. It's a trail. So make yours a path that others can walk when they've lost their way. A rhythm they can dance to when they've lost their hope. A standard they can rise to when they've forgotten their worth. Because in the end, your legacy is not how the world remembers you. It's how the world feels you, long after you've gone. Live that feeling now. Breathe it into every action. And walk forward knowing you are not just building a life. You are building a light. Legacy is not a destination. It is a light you must carry forward every day through uncertainty, resistance, and routine. After all the reflection, the breakthrough, the building of belief and response, this is where the real work begins. Living what you've become. You don't just build a life once and admire it from afar. You carry it. You nurture it. You protect it from erosion, not from the outside, but from within. From the voices that whisper, you can relax now. Or, it doesn't matter today. But it does matter. It always does. Because what you've built is sacred. Not in its size, but in its sincerity. Consistency planted the roots. Legacy grew the tree. But to let the tree live, you must tend to it daily. Not out of obligation, but out of honor. You owe it to the person you used to be, the one who fought to begin, to keep going. You owe it to the future you, the one who will benefit from your current discipline. And more than that, you owe it to the world, to let your light keep shining, Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. There will be days you don't feel inspired, days when the repetition feels dull, days when the path feels pointless. But the light doesn't dim because it is unseen. It dims when we stop feeding it. And you've come too far to let your own light go hungry. So you return to your morning practice. You return to your values. You return to the words that remind you, this is who I am. This is what I build. This is the life I lead, no matter how I feel today. The light is not emotion. The light is commitment. The light is returning, again and again, even in silence. You are no longer searching for identity. You are living from it. The version of you that once doubted is now protected by the discipline you've forged. The version that once hesitated is now guarded by the clarity you've cultivated. And the light? It's not just something you hold. It's something you pass. To your team. To your family. To the stranger who crosses your path at just the right moment. This is the paradox of a quiet life of power. Its light travels farther than you'll ever know, but only if you keep carrying it. There's a responsibility that comes with this kind of life. Not pressure, but presence. Because now you know, the most meaningful impact comes not from occasional greatness, but from daily alignment. It is not your perfection that changes others. It is your presence, your steadiness, your ability to be rooted when others are scattered, your ability to stand when others fall, not because you're better, but because you trained for it, slowly, repeatedly, sincerely. So carry the light, not because the world demands it, but because your soul remembers why it was lit in the first place. Let it glow in the small decisions, in the way you breathe before responding, in the way you show up when it's easy to retreat, in the way you listen when it's easier to speak, in the way you lead when no one claps. This is not a performance. It is a practice. To live like this is to build a rhythm that outlasts applause. To walk like this is to create a legacy that survives the noise. To hold your light daily is to declare, I don't just believe in better. I embody it. You may never know who you inspire by simply staying steady. But that is not your concern. Your concern is the carrying, the tending, the daily return. And should the light ever feel faint, remember this. Your job is not to be the sun. It is to be a flame. Deliberate, disciplined, and durable. Because the flame you keep is not just for you. It's for all of us walking behind you in the dark. Keep carrying the light, especially when it's hard. Especially when it's quiet. Because the one who keeps the flame alive when no one watches is the one who sets the sky on fire when it matters most. You are that one. So keep walking, keep returning, keep becoming. Carry the light and trust it will carry you. This journey was never about hacks or shortcuts. It wasn't about grand gestures or once-in-a-lifetime breakthroughs. It was about remembering something essential. Something simple, sacred, and often forgotten. You already have what it takes. Every word, every ritual, every practice you've cultivated was a way to return to yourself. Not a newer, shinier version, but a deeper, truer one. One who doesn't rely on the noise of the world to feel worthy. One who doesn't wait for external proof to move with purpose. One who, in silence, has become powerful. The message is not that life will ever be easy. It's that you are no longer asking for it to be. Because now you understand, the beauty is not in the ease. The beauty is in your becoming. In the way you meet each moment with honesty. In the way you choose strength, even when it trembles. in the way you choose consistency over comfort, courage over comparison, purpose over performance. You've learned that pain isn't the end of the story. It's the invitation to rewrite it. That failure isn't final, it's formative. That discipline isn't restriction, it's reverence. That silence isn't absence, it's alignment. That what you do daily matters more than what you say occasionally. And above all, you've learned this. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself, again and again. The world may never fully know how hard you've worked to become who you are. It may never see the early mornings, the quiet tears, the brave choices made behind closed doors. But your soul knows, your legacy knows, and every day you rise, not for perfection, but for presence. That's the proof. Because in a culture that idolizes the loud and the fast, you are choosing the quiet and the lasting. You are choosing a life that is built, not borrowed, lived, not performed, rooted, not rushed. And that choice, it changes everything. This journey has given you more than strategy. It has given you sovereignty. It has reminded you that power is not something you grasp. It is something you cultivate, breath by breath, act by act, value by value. And it has taught you that legacy is not written in stone, but in the moments you continue showing up, even when no one claps. So carry this message not as a conclusion, but as a beginning. Carry it into your relationships, your work, your creative fire, your quiet mornings. Let it be the lens through which you see the world. Not with fear, but with fire. Not with urgency, but with understanding. You are no longer chasing clarity. You are creating it. You are no longer begging for motivation. You are becoming it. You are no longer doubting your voice. You are using it, not to impress, but to impact. Your life, lived with intention, is already the message. Your presence is already the proof. So keep showing up, keep returning, keep becoming. The world needs more than brilliance. It needs realness. It needs less performance, more embodiment. It needs less noise, more depth. It needs more people like you, quietly building something no storm can shake. This is your reminder. You don't need to be the loudest. You just need to be the most anchored. Let that be your light. Let that be your work. Let that be your message. And most of all, let that be your life.